Please welcome the President of the U.S. Conference of Mayors, Oklahoma City Mayor David Holt.
Thank you so much, and welcome to our final plenary session of what has really been a whirlwind week. I hope you feel like me that you have gotten a ton out of this and kind of felt like you've lived a month in these last 3 days. But we mayors always use our time efficiently. We're going to open this lunch with a video greeting from someone who's been a great friend both to myself, my city, Oklahoma City, and to this conference. President Bill Clinton, 30 years ago, after the Oklahoma City bombing in 1995, told my city that he would stand with us for as many tomorrows as it takes. And he has kept his word. And a few months ago, when we recognized the 30th anniversary and how we as a city responded to that terrible act, he was there with us, as he has been many, many times through the years. He also, of course, as president, was a tremendous ally to mayors, and that is why we recognized him at that time with the highest award that we have, the Distinguished Public Service Award. With no further ado, here is a very special greeting for the mayors from President Bill Clinton.
I'm honored to join all of you in Washington at the U.S. Conference of Mayors' 94th winter meeting. I'd like to begin by thanking my close friend and your conference president, Mayor David Holt, not only for inviting me to say a few words, but for modeling in Oklahoma City the kind of cooperation that gets real results and changes life in positive ways. You come together for this meeting at a time when your leadership has never been more important. In communities all across America, in ways large and small, and most searingly in Minneapolis, where Mayor Jacob Fry carried a heavy load and well. We have seen unprecedented actions by ICE. People, including children, have been seized from their homes, workplaces, and the street by masked agents. Peaceful protesters and citizens exercising their constitutional right to observe and document law enforcement have been arrested, beaten, tear gassed, and, in the cases of Renee Good and Alex Preddy, shot and killed. Local authorities have been frozen out of investigations into wrongdoing. It's made all our communities less safe for residents and local law enforcement alike, and eroded the essential trust that must exist between the people and their government. And none of it's been necessary. All of it was avoidable. What you said as a conference a few days ago is right. This is not a Republican, Democratic, or independent issue. It affects all of us as Americans, regardless of party, who believe in our fundamental freedoms and the enduring strength of our communities. As leaders on the front lines of these challenging times, your experiences, and more important, your leadership, carry tremendous weight. Just as you try to get America on a path of constructive affordability for ordinary citizens, as our new mayor, Mondami, has done in New York City, we are all being tested about who we are as a nation and what we really stand for. Over the course of a lifetime, we face a few moments, and only a few, where the decisions we make and the actions we take will shape our history for years to come. I believe this is one of them. If we give our freedoms away after 250 years, we might not ever get them back. So it's up to all of us who believe in the promise of American democracy to stand up, speak out, and show that our nation still belongs to we the people. So I hope you'll use your time in Washington, at home, and beyond to make your voices heard, that the current course is unacceptable, that immediate de-escalation is necessary and that we are better than this. I hope you have a great meeting. I'm truly sorry I can't be there, but I am so grateful for all you do as mayors all across the country, in states and cities red and blue, to make our cities laboratories of democracy and growth and innovation. We need you now more than ever. Thank you.
Well, we're very grateful to President Clinton for sending us that very special and inspiring message. I would now like to call on one of our trustees here at the conference who will update us on the Mayor's Leadership Forum being held at the National Medal of Honor Museum in his city. This is coming up in just a couple of months, and here to tell you more about it is trustee and Arlington, Texas Mayor Jim Ross.
Well, hello, folks. Good to be back up here. Let me tell y'all something. Last year, we opened the National Medal of Honor Museum, and I've had an opportunity to meet with virtually every single recipient that's alive today of the Medal of Honor, the highest award given to the men and women who've served our country. And they all have a common theme about why they did what they did, and that is love. Love for the people they serve with, love for their communities, love for their country. And as I talked to them, I thought that's a little bit like us mayors. We love what we do. Today, our job is difficult, navigating all the chaos that we see across the United States. But sometimes our chaos is minute compared to others around the world. Recently, I had the opportunity of having some visitors from Ukraine come to Arlington. And I've invited them to the U.S. Conference of Mayors Winter Conference, and I'd like y'all to help us give them a good conference welcome for our Ukrainian brothers and sisters here. Will y'all please and be recognized, stand and be recognized. Absolutely. Thank y'all. God bless y'all. Listen, leading with courage and integrity and dedication is nothing strange to most of us, but especially not to our Ukrainian brothers and sisters. And that's what this leadership cohort is going to do. It's going to be 2 solid days of lessons taught by Medal of Honor recipients, teaching mayors how to lead with the courage, with the discipline, with the sacrifice, how to lead with integrity, something that this nation truly is in great need of, to be candid with y'all. So I'm excited about what's happening in April 17th and 18th. If you happen to like concerts, we have a special surprise for all the attendees going to a wonderful concert there in Arlington. And you're going to be asked for hat sizes because we cannot let you come to Texas without getting a custom cowboy hat. So come on out, have a great time. God bless y'all, and I love you. Thank you.
The abundance mindset has recently come into prominence as a new way of imagining how government can actually deliver the things that people need, like housing, reliable transportation, affordable energy, and more. Popularized by the best-selling book by New York Times columnist Ezra Klein and journalist Derek Thompson, abundance deviates from a scarcity mindset and encourages leaders to focus on what's possible with innovation, creativity, and optimism. Today, we will hear from Giselle Hale, a managing partner at the Abundance Network and former mayor of Redwood City, California, as well as a panel of our colleagues who are applying the abundance mindset. They'll talk about how it is shaping their approach to governance and leadership in their communities. Please join me in welcoming Giselle Hale. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor Holt, mayors. I was raised by a single mom with 3 girls, and we struggled tremendously to get by. My mom had been this amazing entrepreneur, but when our family fell on hard times, I watched her waste a lot of time. Doing what? Mostly waiting in lines. Waiting in lines to get us our food stamps. Waiting in line or on the phone to keep the lights on. Waiting in line to get us free dental care. And what I learned in those years of my childhood is that it's incredibly time-consuming to be poor. Fast forward, I'm an adult, I get married, I move to the California Bay Area. My husband and I, like a lot of young people in California, we couldn't afford rent. So we did what a lot of young couples do. We moved in with roommates. We delayed starting a family. And finally, after 7 years of marriage, we were able to get our own home. But by that point in time, I had already become obsessed with this question of why is the rent so high? That led me to planning commission meetings, reading meeting minutes. I mean, we all know where this goes, right? So here I am with my 5-week-old applying to the planning commission. Things escalate from there, as they often do for planning commissioners. 7 years plus 1 child later, I'm getting sworn in as mayor. And yes, you're seeing that photo right. It was a Zoom swearing in, and my youngest daughter stuck out her tongue. So that is how our family has that memory to remember. But the point here is that I experienced, like so many of you, like so many of our constituents, the real impact of when government doesn't work. And it has very real consequences on our lives. It affected my childhood. I like to say I have 2 girls and not 3 children because we simply ran out of time, because we didn't have secure housing. And so there's a big difference, though, between everyone else and the people in this room, because everyone in this country has had some sort of suboptimal experience with government. I mean, who's waited in line to get their license renewed at the DMV, right? But there's a difference. Everybody in this room, we chose to do something about it. And not just anything, the most extreme thing, run for mayor. I like to say that if you serve in local government, you're sort of your community's equivalent of a Hunger Games tribute, right? They're like, somebody needs to take care of the sewers, somebody needs to handle water, housing, and you're like, put me in, let me do it. And you're willing to subject yourself to attacks, and you're willing to do the hard work and learn about a lot of issues you may never have known a lot about before. So what is this idea of abundance? Let's demystify it a bit. As Mayor Holt mentioned, it was really accelerated by the launch of a book last March, written by Ezra Klein and Derek Thompson. Now, fun fact, Derek actually came up with the name abundance. And we've found that's been incredibly important. And why? Well, the concept of abundance is not new. I'm sure it will resonate with many of you as you hear about it. But once you have a name, you can create an identity. And once you have an identity, you can build community. And that's what we've been focused on doing over the course of the last year around these principles of abundance. And if you haven't read the book, that's okay. I'm not going to quiz you. But this is literally my favorite line from the whole book. If you want the Cliff's Notes, here it is. Here's what you can take back to your communities. It's about centering government around this question: what do people need more of, and how does government help them to get it? So simple. And think about it. That question, it might have a different answer in every community, in every decade, and with every new technology that we face. And that's what I love about it. It's flexible and it's responsive. And that is how government can really deliver. There are two main pillars in abundance. One is this idea of meeting the essential needs in your community. That doesn't necessarily mean government has to provide them, but it might mean government has to reduce the barriers so someone else can, perhaps the private sector, perhaps the nonprofit sector. The second is this idea of improving the delivery of those needs. You know, in the story of my childhood, we got access to a lot of assistance programs. Policymakers had voted for those programs, which is great. They had funded those programs, which is great. But somebody hadn't done the extra step of making sure they were really easy to access. So put another way, what abundance is really about is two other A words that you're probably hearing a lot about right now in the media and in your communities: affordability and accessibility. And here's what I would argue from a year of putting these into practice with a large number of your peers. Abundance is not an ideology. It is not an agenda. It is a mindset, and it is a methodology. And when done well, it leads to affordability and accessibility. And when you deliver those two things, guess what? You've created trust in government to deliver. And that's what we're here to talk about today with 4 of your peers. Our organization is relatively new. When the book came out, we said, hey, let's see if there are other leaders that think this way. We set a goal of finding 50 members across the US at the end of first year. We ended the year with 150 members in 32 states. And what's fascinating is it's almost entirely word of mouth. We don't advertise. We don't recruit. We're looking for the leaders who are already doing the work, who are already having the receipts, who are already casting the hard votes. And when they find us, they all say the same thing. There's finally a word for the way I work, for what I do. And that's been so rewarding. Some of what we offer our members are, first and foremost, a support group. Because let's face it, everybody needs it if they're in this role. But they're able to work together and hear what ideas are resonating, what's getting traction with their communities, with their staff, and collaborate. That has been, by far, the biggest advantage. We have access to fantastic experts. This is Jennifer Polka, the author of Recoding America. She was actually just with us 2 nights ago, meeting with members here in the lobby. We have phenomenal world-class member tools. We've recently built an abundance assistant on top of Claude, which is the Anthropic nonprofit LLM, which allows you to quickly access vetted, curated policies that get results. And also understand who in the group has implemented those policies so you can understand how to get it done. And finally, and you'll hear more about this from one of our panelists, we have a fellowship program. And I want to give a special shout out to all of our members currently in the audience. If you want to stand, for those of you who are here, we appreciate all of you so much. Please, yes. I can't see anything, but oh, there they are. There's Mayor Corval. There we go. There's Mayor Daggett. One thing we found all of our members have in common is this. They really treat the policy being passed as just one step, as a milestone. It's not the finish line. The finish line is solving that problem, providing for that community need. And that might take more than one policy. It might take more than several policies. It might require a culture change with staff. It might require some hard conversations with the community. It might require getting your peers on board. But that's the way our members work, and that's how we support them in getting things done. Because of this, we like to say we are outcome obsessed, and we're very proud of that. So please join me in welcoming to the stage 4 of our shared members who are going to tell their stories of implementing these practices in their communities. What I love about these mayors, they're from all across the country. These are very different ideas, but they're all answering that one question that I posited in the beginning. So please welcome to the stage Mayors Keller, Keebler, Williams, and Rich. Welcome, mayors. Thank you for being here with us today. So I'm going to start with Mayor Keller. You were actually a great example of someone who comes to mind when I say we were all doing abundance before there was a name, right? Mayor Keller actually wrote a piece in 2017 called Challenging the Myth of Scarcity. And I don't know if Derek and Ezra read it or copied you, but it's a great piece, and it really shows how you were already doing this work. You already had that mindset in the work that you were doing. Mayor Keller also has a lot of passion around being an authentic leader, and I don't think there's a better way to illustrate that than with this. Oh, can we get the sound? There we go. So if you don't recognize that, that is a clip from the hit Apple TV show Pluribus, which he paid a cameo role on. But what I love about that is, who here has had that experience where somebody comes up to you and they're like, "You're the mayor? You look so normal." Talk to us a little bit about how you like to show up and build trust in government.
Well, the funny thing about that clip, I'll tell you a quick story, just that we had to go over the use of the F word multiple times, because you could do it in an angry way, you can do it like in a nice way. And so actually, Ray Seahorn, who's the actress on that, we had a lot of fun. There are a lot of cuts, her just screaming at me. It was great. Anyway, I think to your question, first, I would say the idea that a lot of us have been doing this on our own before is certainly true. And I just want to appreciate the Abundance Network and what you've done, because we were in the dark. Like, I wrote the op-ed that somehow you found years later. No one read that. And I really thought it was good. But, you know, frankly, no one ever mentioned that op-ed. And so it's something that now, though, you're not alone. You're not in the dark. And the Abundance Network is there in many ways to work on these issues. And of course, we'll highlight a few. But part of it is, when you're doing that hard work as mayor that's not as glamorous, you know, I try and first acknowledge where people are at. And I know those of you who were at the Frank Luntz lunch, you know, people are angry. That is where they are at. And I'm just saying, I'm not saying about your town. Your town, maybe everyone loves you and you're the best mayor. In general, at least for me, and we know it nationwide, folks are angry. Why are they angry? They're angry in part because government actually grinds like against them. It's not helpful anymore. And we understand this nationally through a lens of national politics, but locally, to me, it's because government actually isn't getting the job done anymore. Now, it's not that we don't pick up your trash. We'll do that. That's fine. It's not about potholes. It's about how frustrating it is to like add on a porch in your backyard because of the ridiculous permitting process that you have to go through. It's about someone who wants to start a food truck and how hard it is to understand the rules around parking around the city. And so for me, unfortunately, you know, our city government has been driving a lot of that anger. And so I try and first understand that, and then try and build trust that actually city government can make your life easier. And we all say that. I think it's really hard to do. Yeah. Like, if I really point to some way in which government made your life easier, I mean, it's a short list.
It's a high bar.
Yeah. So for us, I'll give you an example, which we're trying to do. And it's around it's a small example because, you know, in some of cities, it depends where you live, but in Western cities, we have like no neighborhood markets. And if you're from a Western city, you kind of know about this. Like, picture a neighborhood like the one on TV where that was filmed. Yeah. And, you know, there's no grocery stores. There's just like giant, you know, huge mega stores, but there's no neighborhood markets like you would see in older cities or in the East. Why is that? Well, we unintentionally essentially zone them out of existence, right? We have R1 zoning. And in R1 zoning, which we brought in the 70s, it doesn't include neighborhood markets. And so as a result, over time, the ones that were grandfathered in, they're gone, and we didn't allow new ones. And then on top of that, what a market isn't defined well in our own like food health ordinance. So basically, if you want to start a neighborhood market, here's what city government says. It says, number one, you don't exist. The notion of a small market doesn't exist in our health code. So clearly you can't exist. And number two, you can't go anywhere because you're not zoned anywhere in a neighborhood. So that's where abundance mindset comes in. So we're now trying to fix that. And it's actually an easy fix. The food definition of a food market, we just can do administratively. And the other one, yeah, we got to get 5 votes on city council to change the R1 zoning to allow neighborhood markets, and we're fighting about that now. But as much as a challenge as this is, rebuilding that trust and showing that at least for people who want a market near their house that they can walk to, just saying that it's possible is what we're trying to do. And it's actually, I think, an example of dozens and dozens of ways where you can rebuild that trust, that government can actually help you, and that government can actually make your life easier, not harder. And that's what I love so much about abundance work.
And I love this example too because it was responding to a particular need in the community, right? When SNAP was being threatened, fresh food access was a really big deal. And so the responsiveness of, hey, we could just make it legal to get fresh food into neighborhoods. It's so simple, right? It's not expensive, but it can matter to seniors and others being able to access that food. So, yeah.
Absolutely, and I'll pass the mic here to our next great mayor on this issue, but I just want to say, using a good crisis, that's what helped us really get the votes, right? So everyone's like, well, we can't access food, and I'm like, well, let me tell you why.
Fantastic. Mayor Keebler, you have just such a great example. You know, I mentioned Jennifer Polka from the book Recoding America, which I also highly recommend. She talks a lot about this idea of use data as a compass, not just as a measuring stick. Use it to show you where you need to go. I feel what you've done in Bend is really exceptional in terms of building not only the transparency with the community about here's the covenant we have in our strategic plan, here's what we've agreed we're going to work on, but then showing in real time how you're doing. Mm-hmm. Anyone can go at any time and see, and then that also becomes a tool with your staff, with your community. Tell us a little bit about the genesis of how you got here, because it's really been, you know, it's evolved over years.
Well, like most of us in this room, you know, we have a problem every time we enter our budget season, which is that our community has a lot of really great ideas, wants, and needs, and we only have so much staff, time, and money to meet those, right? So we do a really intentional process of gathering community feedback, including statistically valid surveys, open houses, meeting with our advisory bodies, meeting with community organizations, and the values that we have as council, and those all inform our goals. But the really important thing we do with our strategic plan is prioritize and talk about what it is we actually are going to be able to do in the next 2 years. The other thing that's really important for that process, as you had mentioned earlier, is we set the goals and we say what we're going to do, but we don't just stop there. And back about 4 or 5 years ago when we created a data dashboard, the idea was to be transparent with the community about what was happening in our city and the results that we were trying to get, and also to measure our goals and see if we were getting there. And if not, that informs the next set of goals and the next adjustments that we need to make. So I'm going to take you through just some iterations of our dashboard so you can see how this developed over the years. But what was really important was that we just got started, right? So this is pretty simple. This is not a big flashy website, but it shows you know, some of our building permits, our population. They just threw some stuff up here to start showing what it is we're trying to achieve. And as we moved through the years of iterating on this, you know, we started to think about putting a narrative with it, right? So you have your goals and your values, and then you need to start communicating those alongside the data. So starting to say why. Why are we looking at this data? Why is this dashboard here? What are we trying to achieve? And this is actually great both externally and internally. So we have our city staff now using this at our quarterly reports that we receive at council. One specific area that we really drilled into was around housing and making sure we're setting clear goals with numbers and then showing how we're meeting them. These dashboards that are, I'm not going to show you the whole thing today, but they're also really great for the community because you can go as deep as you want to. You can click on things and get into spreadsheets. You can look up every single call the police received in a week in your neighborhood, right? You can really inform yourself, and that's really empowering for our community and helpful for me too to dispel assumptions. When people say, I haven't seen the police make any arrests or do any traffic tickets, or, you know, where are our firefighters responding to, or are we really building enough housing? You know, this is a great tool to speak with the community about, oh yes, here I can show you what we're doing. And also we can say, we're not meeting the goal, let's do better. And I think the other thing about this dashboard is that it holds our staff accountable as well. Mm-hmm. So I will tell you, one of the things that we developed a couple years ago was a permitting dashboard that talks about our permitting times. And that, just having that at all, public facing, I love our staff, but it's also a motivator for them to see that their work is on display. And if they fall behind or we're not doing well enough, that's a signal for them to come to us or us to ask questions of them about why we're not meeting our goals. So the final thing I'll say here is that people love a map. So we do incorporate GIS mapping all over our website, and including things like you can see here, where are our safe parking and our shelters? People always want to know that, right? But anything from what's developing around the corner from you, where's the next transportation project, where's the street paving happening this year, where are our snow plows out tonight? People love a map because they can contextualize themselves on it and then kind of look around their neighborhood and around the city. And people love to be able to click into these and find all the information that they can get. So for me, my advice would be, if you're looking at, if you already are doing strategic planning and goal setting, which you should, and you're setting priorities, look at how you can communicate through data dashboards with your community, empower them to get information, and empower you to hold staff accountable as well, and then use this data. We update this real time, right? So this is not just updated twice a year. We are really constantly updating this to make sure that the right information is out there, and then we're watching how we're doing so we can keep improving as a city.
Yeah, it's really remarkable. If you go onto the website one day to the next, the numbers change, right? So it's real-time data, and I think that also builds a sense of trust. Like, they're tracking themselves against these metrics, and you can close the loop with the community. Hey, we said we were going to do X. We did it. Or we tried this policy, this process. It didn't work. We're going to go back to the drawing board.
Right.
But at least there's a way to keep everyone on the same page, and that's huge for building trust.
Yeah,
so
that's
thank you
great.
for sharing that. Mayor Williams. Housing is probably the biggest issue facing our members. I'd say about 80%, that is their top priority. It's something we talk a lot about as a group. I know it's also a huge topic with U.S. Conference of Mayors. Mayor Williams, you've got some great stories about not just one policy, one priority on housing, but building a culture around housing. Tell us a little bit about how you were able to do that in Durham.
Thank you, Giselle, and thank you everyone who's still here today, and hope that you'll forgive me for the bad decisions I made last night, which is why I lost my voice. No stories will be told about that. But no, it's great to be here and just really talk about this housing culture. I look at it this way. Everyone deserves to be able to sleep comfortable at night. Everyone deserves to have shelter over their head. Everyone deserves to have a place to live. These things are they're not complicated. And I was introduced to the Abundance Network because someone basically reached out and was like, dude, you gotta read this book. And I read the book, and I'm a huge fan of Ezra Klein, but the name Derek Thompson just sounded so familiar. And I had a friend reach out and say, hey, we're getting drinks tonight. You should come out. There's someone I want you to meet. And I get to the bar, and it's Derek Thompson. And I also learned that he lives like 15 minutes away from me in Chapel Hill. And you should hear the conversation off the record about abundance, and thanks for the inspiration. But basically, we were overcomplicating things, and we have these zoning, the UDOs that were, written well before I was born, and yet the problems persist. And so we started thinking about how do we make policy to meet the moment, rather than having policy preserve and restrict us for our needs today. And so we established a way to mitigate growth and development, and now we have that model. We started with expanded housing choices and, just ensuring that the more options we had, the more people we can meet where they are. And that was one of the biggest political fights that I've ever experienced. And then we went with what's called SCAD, Simplifying Code for Affordable Development. And because of the author, who was a developer, it was the next biggest fight I've ever experienced. And it got to a point, we have the comprehensive plan as well, which was really embracing of the community engagement. And now we're at the UDO rewrite, currently. But I just cannot understand why we had so many fights on just trying to do the basic things of housing people. There were folks that would say, make it really technical or really complex. And one day at a council meeting, I said, I think the words you're using are the same words that were used when folks that were very privileged, who had a home, 4 homes to a city block, were also the people writing the actual UDO. And in my city, churches, I mean, you get money from love offerings, but the real wealth comes from owning their land, and they have so much acreage, but they could only build one dwelling unit for the spiritual leader. But churches have, they have churchgoers that want to be able to live and be able to afford. And so we changed all of that and said now churches can build whatever they want on their property, but they are supported by the city even more. They build housing. And so now all of these churches, which we're in the South, every city in the South has 1,000 churches. They have so much acreage and they're now building housing, and we've expanded our housing supply by thousands. And there are people that are saying, we need more affordable housing, and now I get to say, wait, we are building affordable housing, but we need to start talking now about affordable living. We need to take a much more comprehensive approach and a comprehensive approach that allows us to be more intentional about the jobs that are available and the employers that we're recruiting, to make sure that the wages are meeting you halfway and the cost of living is meeting you the other way. Putting in policies to make sure buses stay fare free. We don't mind taxing ourselves if it aligns with our values, but we also have to make sure that we are generating that sales tax revenue so that we aren't taxing the hell out of everyone on the property tax side. So it really is a delicate balance. It's a dance. And we have this growth, this model, and the Raleigh-Durham area is the second fastest growing metro region in America right now. And while some people are seeing the population decline, we are barely keeping up. And so I'm glad that we made these decisions a while ago, that we're now being able to keep up and mitigate this growth. Yes, change is complicated, it can be difficult, but I can confidently say in Durham, if you want to live there, you're going to have somewhere to live.
Love that. And you mentioned something about the pushback that you get. We hear this a lot from our members. They meet a mayor, a council member, supervisor in a rural part of the country, in an urban. They hear the pushback they're getting, and they're like, that sounds bizarrely similar to the pushback I'm getting in my community. We start to establish it's really just the same set of arguments being used. So we're really focused on what are the most effective ways to have these conversations. We have some great partners that have done message testing nationally on what are the messages that resonate with voters. So we really want to make it easier for the next Mayor Williams to have to fight this kind of battle. And we have so many mayors who've fought. I see Mayor Pourval in the audience, another huge zoning battle. So thank you for your work. Mayor Rich, so Mayor Rich is an example of someone in our fellowship program. So I mentioned one of our member benefits is our fellowship, and this is our inaugural class. Of course, we're a new organization. And it's very unique in that it is totally outcome focused. So each person, each member, and it's only available for members to apply, they apply with a project in mind, and then they work over the course of the year with an advisor, who is generally speaking a former mayor, with a cohort, a peer cohort, and I need the clicker back this way, and with experts on how they're going to get that project delivered. And we really frame it in terms of a SMART goal. So we're really looking to help them deliver by the end of the year. These are our 2026 fellows. I'm sure you recognize some of them. Mayor Kincannon was also going to be on this panel, but had to, when we moved times, had to leave, and is also a member. And the fellowship has 4 cohorts, and these break into the groups and what they're working on. It's kind of fascinating. So half the group is working on housing. Of that half, a quarter are on housing supply issues, so zoning. But a quarter are on that process side of permit reform, which is what Mayor Rich is focused on. And then a quarter are focused on leadership culture. That is a very big theme we're finding. How do you create that agreement, that urgency between your elected team and your staff team about what good looks like? A lot of our mayors, some of them are ending, they're in their last term, and they're really focused this idea on the legacy, right? What is something that will outlive my term, my time in office, and have a lasting impact on my community? So that's what that group spends a lot of time on. Then we have the Everything Bagel group, which is everything. It's a little childcare, a little infrastructure, and more. And so Mayor Rich, you're an example of someone focused on permitting. Tell us a little bit about how you selected your project, how it's going so far, and what you're finding.
So let me introduce you to Farmington Hills. We're a city of 84,000 in Michigan. I like to say Detroit is one of our suburbs. And we are a very diverse city. And what my concern was is we're trying to now develop some areas that had been neglected for a long time. So we brought together developers and said, so what's getting in the way for you investing more in our city? And what the answer was is it's just really hard to do business here. Now we have some, of course, who say it's great to do business here, but their concern is that things take too long and it's hard to get things through the process and so many iterations, so projects end up not penciling at the end of the day. So this project is looking at how can we increase affordability by reducing time and reducing red tape. So our city, once upon a time, our main drag, Orchard Lake Road, was an airstrip. In fact, the air traffic control tower is still there on top of an auto repair. But growth has always been part of our city, and today we're 98% built out. So what are we going to do now to continue to develop, to continue to grow? And the reality is we're at a point where we have to grow up. And so if we're going to stay affordable, become affordable, and if we're going to be vibrant, which is part of our newly established vision for the city to be a vibrant destination, then we need to grow a little differently than we have before. And so we need to be smarter. How are we going to do development in this environment? This picture, by the way, is our Hawk Activity Center. It's an amazing example of adaptive reuse. This was a high school. But the problem is, how do we make the process available? How do we make ourselves move a little bit faster in terms of getting projects through? And so, as Giselle said, we had to establish SMART goals. So our SMART goals, specific, measurable, actionable, relevant, and time-bound for this project. And each of us in the fellowship has a SMART goal. So mine is, how do we cut development timelines by 20% with changes we put into place by the end of this current calendar year? And so some of the things we're looking at, right now we're looking at what is our baseline to measure against, so data. But what are things getting in our way? Where is it we're sending things to Planning Commission over and over and over again that maybe don't even need to go to planning at all? What are the things that we can push down for administrative decision making? And from a culture perspective, what can we do to get to a culture of what if yes, as opposed to here are the reasons why this isn't going to work? So we're looking at how do we challenge our permitting? How do we challenge our requirements? And as part of our master plan, we put into place a number of zoning ideas that we wanted to implement, and how do we go about now simplifying the zoning as we go forward. And so we're still in the early stages of this project. So into data gathering, we're going to have another session very soon, this winter yet, with some more of our developers, where we're going to ask them, so what are specific stories, specific examples of what's getting in the way of your doing business here? And here's a reality, mayors. How many of you have the biggest complaint you get is, where's my permit? Anybody? Where's my certificate of occupancy? Anybody? So what we're trying to do with this is see what we can use to use the abundance framework and leveraging with all the other people in the fellowship and the marvelous resources that are available to us to make doing business better, easier, cheaper, faster in Farmington Hills.
Love it. Thank you. So we're going to do live Q&A. There are, I don't know where they are. There's going to be mic runners. I don't know, where are the mic runners?
one back there.
Oh, yeah. Okay, there we go. We've got a raised hand. So You can raise your hand, and then I will point, and they'll bring you the mic. There was an app, but we'd rather see your faces and keep you out of your phones. While that's queuing up, I will add, so we're still accepting new members to our program. Again, the fellowship is once a year, and you have to already be a member. They will put up the QR code in a minute so that you can see that application if this is something that resonates with you and you want to learn more. Also highly encourage you to speak with any of the mayors who were on the slide earlier, any of our panelists, about their experience. Go ahead, tell us your name and city, please.
Pulkit Desai, mayor of Parsippany, New Jersey. The report, the status, the monthly reports that you have done, I forget who brought that up.
The
Wonderful
data
idea.
dashboard? Yeah.
Yes. I would like some more information on that.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Yeah, and I forgot my other advice is steal from other cities, which is what we did. We looked at other cities that had some dashboards. I'm happy to connect you with our folks and our team on that. And again, just starting with one and moving from there is still going to be beneficial. So happy to connect.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
Welcome. I saw a hand over here. There we go.
Yes, one of the biggest barriers to change is city staff or city administration. How did you overcome that resistance to get their buy-in and make these changes happen?
Who is that directed at, or everybody?
Actually, all of them.
Yeah,
I think I would like to hear from
absolutely. Why don't we start with you, Mayor Keller? Yeah, this is a very important topic.
Yeah, and I don't have any secret sauce, but I can tell you, number one, we did do a little public shaming. Now, not personally, but once we started putting up, this is not what I presented on about, local markets, but when we started putting up our wait times for permitting, all of a sudden the staff really had a different perspective because the public was livid and then there was data behind it. So, that was a little, it wasn't super nice to do to staff, but they just weren't moving. So it was just airing out something that everyone already knew. So that was kind of one thing. And a second thing is I did get, in our case, a new planning director. And in hiring, I just made it the condition upon which you are hired. I said, you will address this issue, otherwise, but if you do it up front, right, it's much nicer than trying to come down hard. So look, I changed out the planning staff and I made it a condition of the new team that went in there. But there's still, hundreds of deep state kind of involved. But it really helped. The guy at the top now, he gets abundance. And that has made a huge difference.
No, that matters for sure. Go ahead, Mayor Williams.
Yeah, so we didn't really have staff pushback. We had public pushback of our, Durham is about 90%, we're a very, very, very progressive town. And we noticed that our staff, as well as our development community, were on the same page. It was the elected leaders who were, hey, I'm a progressive, but NIMBY, had the NIMBY approach. And that was baffling to me because the audience members, the community members were more on the conservative side. Hey, we don't want change, the city's growing too fast. And, we just had folks that would vote no on everything. And I didn't understand that. And so what we did was we just streamlined our planning department because we were getting these same issues. We did a housing assessment, and that's available. We partnered with our chamber. It's on our chamber website, the foundation. So we have a pretty expansive data dashboard on what housing we need, where we're putting it up, and what types of housing we need, and who needs it. And so that's rich information. With that information and streamlining every department, every entity of the development process is now under one person. And we have this ombudsman approach. We're streamlining and we're getting things done a lot faster now. And we did this because we knew that the votes are going to continue to be contentious and we cannot hold up the growth and development of the city based on a personality conflict on the council.
I would say, too, that you need to move on from anecdotal. So we, in the last 2 years, commissioned 3 really important studies. We commissioned a study for our Grand River Corridor, which had been a neglected area for a very, very long time and was a food desert. And we all knew it was a food desert, but we didn't have the data. Now we do. We have 2 other areas that are way due for a refresh. And again, we brought in different consulting teams, and these are the consulting teams we brought in were not the usual suspects. We brought in consulting teams that had a different perspective than the people we had worked with previously. Not to say the ones we worked with previously were bad people or bad companies, but the reality is if you keep doing the same thing, you're going to get the same result. And so we wanted to see something a little bit different. So now we have the data from these 3 studies to say, okay, now we're doing our goal setting for this year, and here's how we can go about making changes based on what we've learned.
I think the final point I would add is that we do need to admit it does take political leadership. You do have to do things like be willing to change staff if they are not online with the vision, and you have to be willing to lead the public narrative, I think, a little bit. And I think for me, what I've learned is the why is really important. So not just, hey, we're doing this thing, but why? What are we trying to achieve? And it is that the nurses and the teachers and the baristas in my town cannot afford to live here, right? And that is the ultimate problem we're trying to solve, because that's better for everyone if they can, right? So I think tying it to that why and trying to understand that you can change people, not everybody, but some people's minds can be changed, or even just making a decision in the face of opposition sometimes starts to get those wheels turning for people that, well, this is the ethos of the city now, this is the values we have, so let's get on board so we can shape it instead of constantly being in opposition.
There's a real theme here, and this is something we see across the membership. The best community engagement is actually done at that problem and outcome level. So not which project, which specific policy, but what do we want to create in this community? Where do we want to get to? And then leave it with us and the staff and hold us accountable to get there. But let's all agree on the problem we're trying to solve, and then we'll start to move the needle. And so what we find is the more you can take that process and move it up, move it into strategic planning, get really clear, that also becomes a great way for staff to push back, honestly, and say, these are the priorities you gave me, and now you're saying do this. Which is it, right? And we don't all have infinite resources. That is a reality. Even if you're in the biggest city, you have finite resources. So where we direct them is going to matter to the outcomes we're able to deliver. That's just a reality.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Other questions in the room?
Oh, those were good questions.
Great. So I'm gonna close with. So this is a QR code if you want to learn more about the group. Happy to answer any questions as well. But I feel there's actually a great reason for optimism right now. I know that is not the general mood. That is not the general mood in the country. That is not the general mood, perhaps even today. But local government is the layer of leadership closest to the people. If trust is to be restored, it will happen here. It will happen with the people in this room doing this kind of work in their communities, proving, showing, yes, government can and should work. I like to joke, but really feel, actually, my inbox is the happiest place in this country. Because every day I get to hear from mayors, like all of you, who are doing the work, who are actually solving problems, who are actually making an incremental difference day in and day out in their communities. And that is how we change minds and hearts, and that is how we rebuild trust in government. So I hope to set you off back into your communities on that optimistic note. Thank you all for the service and the work that you do. Thank you to our mayors. And let's go rebuild trust. Thank you.
All right, you did it. You're the real ones. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for making it all the way till the end. Our 94th winter meeting is now adjourned. Safe travels home.